Now, uh, see, I've had so many discussions with so many people across Africa, and one thing we all talk about is that about the declining standards of education. I mean,
Okay.
I'm not in Africa, so
Right.
I tend to listen and take what people who are on ground tell me.
Okay.
What's your view about the declining standards in Africa in our education? Is it real?
Look, I'm in North Africa, and,
Okay.
and there is a distinction between North Africa and what I call Black Africa, which is under that belt at the top, where you've got sort of Egypt, and then you got Egypt, and then you've got Tunisia, and you've got Algeria and Morocco, and then that's kind of the top end. I'm not sure when we talk about Africa, I think that even though it's the one continent, and I would love for everyone to think that all these are connected, I don't think in reality they are, in the way that they're treated or perceived. So if we're talking about Black Africa, then I would say, look, I'm not there either. I grew up in the UK. I've never lived in Africa, although I visited Ghana a lot, because that's where I'm from. That's where my mother is, where my father are from. But is there a decline? I don't know. I don't know what it was like to begin with. But what I will say is our standards.
I did.
Okay, so you can probably help me out here.
In fact, I've never done any formal education outside Nigeria.
Okay, so if you tell me what were standards like before, then I can tell you whether they've declined. So let me give you an example. Right? Was there a consistent monitoring and collection of your views and opinions of what you need to help your education as a student? Was that happening in the school you were in as you were growing up?
Formally, no, it never happened.
You go.
Now, but like I told you when we first talked, my father is an educator. Okay, right. So for us, my father and mother, okay, so for me in the house, yes, okay. We did that. And I saw my father do it for so many of his students. Okay. They come to him in the house, they sit down and talk. See, they go through what they want to do. And my father advises them. Okay. So for me, it happened. But formally in school, it never happened.
Right.
Okay. So see, that may be a modern way of education, which never really happened in my time. Okay. Now, having said that, I went to my secondary school, for example, is the first secondary school in Nigeria. So at the time I was there, it was pretty good. Okay. Many of my classmates are all around the world making wave.
All right.
Okay. So we had a solid secondary school at my time. But talking to people around the kind of area I grew up, okay, when I talk to them, they don't seem to get the standard of the kind of the discussions we have doesn't seem to show me that they have learned so much in school.
Right.
So for me, looking from outside, it looks it's not good. It's not as good as it was. Now, many of our youths in Nigeria, for my country, for example, are out of school.
Oh wow!
So it's not looking good.
Right.
Yeah. So go on.
I was just going to say, what's difficult when we ask questions like that is what are the indicators that we are measuring against?
Yeah.
When we talk about whether something has declined or not, we need a place to start. And
then
we can look at where we are and say, okay, well, what's the difference? But it's really difficult in a world which is constantly changing. So today we live in a very technical or technological environment. To what capacity do schools have reach or access to the technologies which are needed to prepare kids for tomorrow? That would be an indicator which would be difficult to compare to the past, because maybe we didn't need it then. But what you mentioned, you picked on something which is a perception, which is, you know, that when you speak to young people today, they don't seem to have that sort of all-rounded education that maybe you had growing up. And we can't throw that out. You may not have statistics to back up what you're saying, but it's a perception. It's something that you feel when you speak to people. And I actually have the same perception, and I think a lot of people probably do. So, you know, if we were to use that as an indicator, just one tiny indicator, then we could say possibly yes. There has been a decline in what the expectations are for students when they leave. And I think part of that is, strangely enough, and this is a bit ironic, and it might seem like I'm talking about two things, but it's connected to what schools are responsible for nowadays. Schools have changed. Schools are no longer responsible for making sure that you know page 1 to 100 in the textbook and can name every date and a person and can do every mathematical formula. That's not the only thing schools are meant to do. Schools are meant to create good citizens that transform environments and are change agents and you know, can communicate well. And there's just so much now that we're responsible for as school leaders that I think trying to compare is difficult. One thing I will say is, I think the standard of education in terms of knowledge and content has reduced. I think it's gone down. I think what we were capable of doing, and my generation, and I won't say how old I am because that's but in my day, in the UK, what we were expected to produce in terms of assessment at the end of school, I don't feel that kids today are expected to do quite the same thing. I think
I know
are easier. I think GCSEs and A-levels are easier today, and I'm probably going to get shot down for that. But not. I won't shut it down because, sorry, my daughter, my oldest daughter is in A-level. My second daughter is going to do her GCSE next year. So I know what you're talking about. Yeah, you've seen the kind of work that they're doing. You know, I'm not saying that the grades are invalid. These kids work extremely hard, and we've got to be extremely proud of them. But what I am saying is those who are responsible for creating the environments, the assessments, etc., have lessened the
standards.
Yes, the standard in which people need to pass.
I will agree with you. Yeah.
And I think there are some valid reasons for doing that. Like I said, there's a lot more that schools now have to cover. So, you know, there may not be the kind of time and focus on content and knowledge that there once was. So I think there are reasons for that, but it doesn't stop that being the case. That's kind of what I'm alluding to.
Well, you talked about we don't have standards to compare. Well, I think if the policy demands a standard assessment, key indicators, you know, and yes, if we institute key indicators, then we can use that to compare from year to year and era to era. So,
that would help. It's sometimes difficult, but you're right. Yes, that is what would be needed in order to do that. I saw something recently, and it was an Egyptian paper. Now, it was an old Egyptian exam from the 1960s, I believe, and it was a grade 6 examination assessment, right? And this is in Egypt, and I was absolutely shocked at the level. It was on Facebook, and it was there were a lot of comments which were in Arabic, and my Arabic's really terrible, so I wasn't able to keep up with everything. But those who were commenting in English were basically saying that this is the kind of work which is now done at university.
Yeah.
And in 1960, grade 6 kids were doing that work, and you know, it's only a perception. I don't have the stats. I don't have the sort of empirical statistics or research to back up what I'm saying. It's a perception, but I think their perception is held by a lot of people, and you know, that gives it some validity. You know, we're not all crazy. I know everybody thinks their era was the best, so we've got to be cognizant of that. But I think there is a perception that standards have lessened in regards to what is required.
I get you.